And I'm here asking the question, are you better off than you were in 1980? He said, we'll have less taxes. Well, you know what? Taxes as a share of the economy are the same they were back then. Government spending as a share of the economy hasn't changed one iota.
Except it's higher, absolutely.
Well, what we've got, but not as a share of the economy.
I understand.
And what we've gotten instead is all this government debt, so that now, assuming that all the interest on the federal debt is paid just from the individual income tax, all the income taxes that you pay from January through the end of April just go to pay interest on the national debt. And since 86% of federal tax revenues come from labor and 14% from capital, that means we explicitly have a policy now to tax labor to transfer to capital. All right?
Or to China.
Well, but that's China's capital.
Yeah. Right.
So we didn't get less government that we were promised. Next, we were told we should have deregulation. There's no such thing as deregulation. Everything has rules. You have rules here at the law school students have to follow. There are rules on on what size and shape a stop sign has to be. Baseball has rules right down to how many stitches there are on the baseball. What we got were new regulations. And the new regulations were written by Enron and the railroads and the banks. And they eliminated consumer protections or reduced them. They took away enforcement of the existing laws. They benefited this political donor class who were pursuing their own self-interest. And by the way, I don't have any problem with people pursuing their own self-interest. It's just there's not been a pushback from the rest of society, as we have seen unions, which help push back, decline, and other areas where there was pushback, decline. Big churches, some of them were involved in this, and we've seen them decline. We were promised that we would have, that markets would provide solutions. Well, you know, a lot of my book is a defense of markets. The Supreme Court says a market is where independent parties, neither under duress or coercion, and with knowledge of the facts, come to an agreement on a price. That's not what a lot of our new markets do. We now have markets designed to thwart competition, to take Adam Smith's invisible hand of the market, in which there are lots of sellers and smart consumers who can compare prices, and this drives prices down, Adam Smith said, to the lowest level at which businesses can continue to operate. We've replaced that through government policies with practices that artificially restrict competition, that raise prices, that inflate profits, all under the guise of conservatism, and markets will solve our problems. Fundamentally, I argue in Free Lunch, what's happened is that a narrow segment of our society, large corporations, which are immortal and amoral.
Right.
They're necessary, they're important, they are great producers of wealth, but there's reasons that you want to regulate and control entities that are both amoral. Their purpose is to maximize return to capital, which is a perfectly good thing to do, but they have no other obligation. And they are immortal. Unless they mess up in the marketplace, they go on forever. Unlike you and I, who our time's going to run out someday.
Not soon, I hope.
One hopes. Unless we have rules that govern their conduct, they can do enormous damage to our society. And we have had a massive effort to collect subsidies from the government, to get rid of government employees and replace them with private sector workers who typically cost twice as much. So the federal workforce has gone down, and everybody's seen news stories that the federal workforce is shrinking, but the number of people who are paid by the federal government to work is going up, and the cost per person, per labor hour, is going up enormously. And when we do that, by the way, unlike creating a bureaucracy where, empire building bureaucrats, now you have a corporation that makes campaign contributions to encourage more of this and more contracts and more money flowing their direction. So all of the things we were promised, most of them haven't happened. Well, there have been some good things. Airfares have fallen. We have a lot more air traffic than we used to have. There have been some benefits. It is not black and white. But my focus is on these areas where we now have massive transfers of wealth and income from those with less to the politically connected few. Billions and billions of dollars being handed up the ladder.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.